Magandang araw Pilipinas, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Isa na namang edisyon ng Iparas kay Paras. Ako pa rin po ang inyong kasama, Eli Saludar. Secretary Jing, magandang araw sa iyo.
Magandang araw po. Magandang araw sa ating mga kababayan. At well, as usual, wala tayong ibang masasabi. Kasi karamihan ng ating mga kababayan, Eli, ay talagang sapul sa hirap ng ekonomiya ngayon, no?
Tuloy-tuloy ang paghihirap ng taong bayan.
Yes. At dito si
Kado, magandang araw sa iyo.
natin.
Magandang hapon po, magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Depende kung saan parte ng Pilipinas kayo o ng mundo naroon.
At alam mo, sa halip ng kahirapan, sa halip ng kabulastugan nitong gobyerno ni Marcos, and despite the support of the people to the Vice President, ay mukhang binubugbog nila sa propaganda ngayon ng ating Vice Presidente. Dahil lang sa intelligence fund na galing din naman sa Malacanang. Humingi si Sara ng intelligence fund to support her program in 2022 dahil nag-assume siya lang nga bilang bagong administrasyon at binigay naman kusang loob ni Marcos. Ang binabakbakan si Sara. Si Sara, as far as her concerned, ay nagdidepende lang sa presidente. Kasi ang may-ari ng pera is the president through his contingent fund.
Sa Office of the President.
Oo. She went to the process of requesting and
Inaprubahan.
And in fact, the Secretary of the Budget and Management has even defended it. So, ngayon, nakakapagtaka mga kababayan, doon sa Kongreso, ay bigla itong mga kaliwete na kalaban ni Sara Duterte sa kanyang to get rid of insurgency in Davao, ay talagang pinupunteriya ngayon ang ating Vice Presidente nitong mga kaliwa.
Okay, Secretary Jing, binabag mo sa mga makakaliwa kasi sa mga nakaraan, matagal na rin tayo sa media, madalas na ang binabatikos ng grupong yan, yung pinaka-presidente.
Yes.
Pero sa pagkakataong ito, bakit ang Vice Presidente ang pinagtutuunan nila ng pansin ng mga batikos?
Yes, tama ka, Eli. Kado, tama si ka, Eli, na in the past, sa panahon ni Ramos, panahon ni Gloria, lalo na sa kay Gloria, ay ang mga kaliwa talagang honeymoon period lang. Even sa panahon ni Cory, na may mga kaliwa sa gobyerno ni Cory, si Joker Arroyo, sila ano. Pero honeymoon period, after 1 year, babanat na. Pero ang binabanatan nitong mga kaliwete nito ay ang presidente. Pero nakakapagtaka ngayon. Bakit ang Vice Presidente na wala naman siyang kinalaman sa release ng pondo, ay siya ang pinuputakte when in fact it's the President. Mayroon kayang ugnayan ang kaliwa at si Marcos ngayon? Or binabayaran kaya ni Marcos or yung nagpapatakbo na babae dyan sa Malacanang ang mga kaliwa para tirahin si Sara Duterte?
Yan, patong-patong na mga agenda kasi. Hindi na normal times ngayon, no?
So dito, may posibilidad na may kinalaman ito sa 2028 presidential elections.
Yes, and may kinalaman din ito sa revenge. Because, you know, if you look back, ako mismo, personally, I have been a witness. Dahil sa pagkakaibigan namin ni Speaker, pinakiusapan ako to support BBM. Actually, reluctantly, I supported and I even asked the President, Duterte at that time, Sir, sabi ko, suportahan na lang natin si Marcos. Total, nandyan naman ang inyong mahal na anak na tumatakbong Vice Presidente. Sabi niya, pare, hindi talaga ako pwede mag-support dyan.
Parang
malalim yung kanyang...
Hindi niya masikmura.
Hindi niya masikmura. And you can deduce from the fact that the President was saying he's a weak leader. There's a presidential candidate that is using cocaine. So, you can already kung sa kwan pa yan, blender, pwede mo lang ipaghahalo-halo yung mga prutas ng blender, yun din yung by analogy, yun din yung sinasabi ni Duterte, di ba? So, and this, hindi lang ito in the last campaign period. Nag-ugat din ito sa isang tao dyan sa Malacanang na masama ang loob kasi tinutulak niyang maging Secretary of Agriculture, ito si Marcos. Nung natalo na pagka-vice presidente, tinutulak nito ni Mrs. si Bongbong Marcos na maging Secretary of Agriculture, but it was ignored by Duterte. So, there is really resentment against Duterte, President Duterte, by that woman in Malacanang. And I won't be surprised if she is the one manipulating this. Kunyari, kaibigan sila ni Sara, pero patalikod, binibira si Sara ngayon. At hindi natin alam kung yung mga kasabwat nitong babaeng ito sa Congress or sa elsewhere are, nag-band sila together to hit Sara Duterte now. Oo. Di ba?
Okay. So, Secretary Jing, para sa kaalaman ng ating mga taga-subaybay, siguro bilang naging kongresista at miyembro ng gabinete, ano ba talaga itong pinagtatalunan ngayon na confidential at intelligence fund ng isang miyembro ng gabinete, katulad kay BP Sara na siya kalihim ng Department of Education?
Alam mo, let's explain this. Si Bongbong Marcos, may contingency, mayroong confidential fund or intelligence fund. Sometimes this term is interchangeable, no? Confidential fund may differ probably in technicality lang with intelligence fund. Pero it's defined by law itself. It's defined under the budget kung ano yung confidential fund and intelligence fund. Kung hindi natin bigyan ang Vice President, parang ano naman kasi pati yung pinakamaliit na bayan, mayroong intelligence fund. And ngayon, kini-question nila ngayon yung intelligence fund na ginamit ni Vice President Sara sa Davao.
Nung siya ay naging mayor pa, kini-question.
And you know what Davao is? That's the bastion of insurgency. Mga Alsamasa, yung ang dami dyan. In fact, ang daming mga leftist na kongresista na nanggagaling dyan sa Davao. Na parang cell ng ano yan, ng insurgency yung Davao. Kaya, and in fact, sinasabi ng nasaan yung it took a long time for the military to attain the good governance. Nang sinasabi na lang free Davao of insurgency. Bago na lang yan, a seal of good governance, sinasabi na ngayon ng military na ang Davao is now free of insurgency. Dahil siguro sa efforts ni Vice President, which was mayor. And prior to that, the effort of President Duterte when he was also mayor.
Tsaka bukod sa insurgency, di ba, may mga hinala at sinasabi noon na, di ba, yung mga terorista, kasi may mga bombing na nangyayari dyan.
Umaabot dyan ang laban ng, ng BIFF. Kasi malapit lang yan. Ang Mindanao has always been a bastion of rebellion between the insurgent NPA and also the rebellion of the Muslim. And Davao being a very accessible pwede magtago dahil napakalawak ng Davao, kailangan din talaga ng intelligence expenditures para diyan matukoy kung saan nagtatago, at also intelligence fund pwede rin diyan to support. Hindi lang yan purely intelligence literally, but also to support para maibsan yung insurgency. That's also allowed under the definition of intelligence fund.
Teka, ito ba mga kaliwang ito, mayroong prinisinta na kaso o ebidensya na itong mga confidential funds na ito na dumaan sa Vice Presidente ay nasa laula, naging subject to corruption,
Wala.
o hindi napunta sa tamang puntahan.
Wala.
Puro ngaw-ngaw lang yata.
Ngaw-ngaw lang ng ngaw-ngaw. Kagaya lang rin yan, it's no difference than inaakusa din nila si Speaker Romualdez na nagbigay ng pera sa Harvard at they presume that it's a government fund. Ito rin, sabi nila, just because 129 million has been spent, it is already presumed that it is spent under a corrupt means of expenditure. Wala naman silang ebidensya. Wala namang ebidensya. Ito nga, pakinggan natin si, in fairness, let us also listen to what the Vice President has to say against these people. Ito, pakinggan natin at basahin natin yung kanyang reply. Okay. Ito, Sara slams critics, lies, dirty imagination.
Without addressing specific concerns about the Office of the Vice President's confidential funds, BP Sara claimed yesterday that the criticism were lies and insisted that the funds were not accessed illegally. I believe the lies, sabi ng Pangulo, they peddled to the public will eventually lose their charm and the OBP and the DepEd will persist, be vindicated and realize their aspirations for the Filipinos and the country, Duterte said in an interview. Ayan.
Well, Malacanang said the confidential funds acquired by the OBP for its 22-22 budget were made through budget adjustments. Critics argued that Congress did not allocate the funding and is therefore a non-existent item under the law of the General Appropriations Act. These are just mere allegations at hindi nakakaintindi kasi sinasabi nila hindi daw mag-augment ng fund kung walang existing appropriation. But alam mo, I've been in Congress. I've been in the cabinet. I've been an undersecretary, assistant secretary. I always hear this term contingent fund. And contingent fund is a fund allocated to the President to be used in accordance to the need of the President. Ito, pakinggan natin itong explanation ni Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman. Ito. The Budget Secretary has justified the release. There's a difference between the release and augmentation. Okay, pakinggan natin. Dahil niniintindihan ito ng mga kaliwete. Okay. Department of Budget and Management Secretary Amina Pangandaman wrote to House Appropriations Committee Chairperson Saldico on September 11, birthday ko pa, explaining to Congress that the confidential funds of the OBP received in 2022 were a release, not a transfer. Release. Pangandaman saw the need to make the distinction because transferring appropriations from one office to another is deemed unconstitutional unless it is through the process of augmentation. But she argued that the contingent funds exist with the purpose of covering funding requirements of new and urgent activities of the national government. So what I was saying, yung contingent fund, binibigay yan sa ating Pangulo kung mayroon siyang gustong gastusin. Hindi kailangan ng maski dyan pondo na naka-exist. So,
pagkakaalam ko ng sekretary, discretionary nga ng president.
Discretionary ng presidente. Kaya nga nilagyan ng pondo ng Congress as contingent fund, parang dagdag yan sa ating Pangulo. Ako I remember during the time of, I think, I was an undersecretary ng DOTC, the time ni Cory Aquino, na pag nanghihiram, pag nag-invest ka sa isang project, mayroon niyang tinatawag na counterpart fund. Di ba? Pagka walang allocated na counterpart fund, ang isang ini-engage ng isang department through his contingent fund, pwedeng maglipat pwedeng mag-release ang
Mag-release,
Presidente.
ang presidente.
Oh.
Kasi, halimbawa, DOTC, mayroon siyang pinasok na programa, walang counterpart fund na naka-allocate doon. The contingent fund allocation of the president, a portion of that can be used for that purpose.
Meron pang provision dyan, Secretary, na subject to the approval of the New People's Army. Yung mga pondo na yan.
Subject to
On the National Democratic Front.
subject to approval of the National Democratic Front bago ka mag-release si
Meron pa
Marcos.
ganun?
Ipapakaalam muna kay Castro at kay Brosas.
Tanungin natin ito. Ayan,
Ito.
si Raul Manuel. Tingnan natin, may video dito.
Hindi, ito muna. DepEd Confidential for National Security. Pakita muna natin dito yung dagdag niya.
Pagkandaman.
She added, at galing ito kay Pangandaman, the DBM Secretary, she added that the 125 billion released to the OBP in 2022 was for the Office Good Governance, Engagement, and Social Services Project. Ito naman, si Kimbo naman. Kimbo, Member of Congress, sinalungat niya yung mga kaliwa. At anong sinasabi ni Kimbo? Then there's the question of whether interagency transfers were allowed or not. On September 7, Marikina 2nd District Representative Stella Kimbo spoke to ANC saying those transfers were commonplace and legal. Legal. The line item, which was confidential intelligence funds, already existed in 2022. Just so happened that the amount was zero. You can actually augment an item because the item already existed. The House Appropriations Senior Vice Chairman said, okay, let me explain yung kay Kimbo at kay Pangandaman. Ito nga, even the Vice Chairman has even went out of her way to explain na pwede pa rin augmentation. Hindi lang transfer, but pwede pa rin augmentation. Pero doon na lang tayo sa transfer.
O release.
Doon na lang tayo sa release. Doon sa release, may karapatan at may poder ang ating Pangulo kasi mayroon siyang pondo na binigay ng Kongreso, yung contingent fund. At karapatan, poder ni Marcos na magbigay maski kanino, hindi lang kay Vice President. Kung hihingi ang DOTR, bibigyan din ni Marcos yan sa contingent fund niya. Kung hihingi ang Public Works, bibigyan din ni from the contingent fund. Otherwise, ano pang silbi ng contingent fund kundi gagastusin ni Marcos?
Tama na sabi, dalawang issue ito. Unang-una, it is justified. At pangalawa, discretionary fund ito ng presidente. Either way, this is legal. So, ano pinuputok ng butsin itong mga kaliwa na ito?
In contrast to transfer, which happened during the time of Noynoy, which was declared illegal by the Supreme Court, yung DAP. Because funds coming from savings, ito hindi savings to contrary to the question of Edsel Lagman na kailangan daw magka-savings bago mag-ano. Hindi po. Contingent fund of the President, you don't need to wait for the end of the year na magka-savings bago contingent fund, discretionary fund, pwede niyang gamitin ng Pangulo.
Parang reserve money.
Oo.
Yung contingent fund, yung ibang salita, reserve money, reserva kung may pangangailangan.
May pangangailangan. So, si Edsel Lagman, sa tagal mo na partner, Edsel Lagman, hindi ka rin nag-aaral pa din. Naging appropriations chairman ka na long time ago, hindi mo pinag-aralan na ang contingent fund pwedeng gastusin maski hindi pa darating na maging savings yan. Okay. And
depends on the need and the urgency.
And that is within the discretion of Marcos, being Pangulo. Secondly, hindi rin yan illegal kasi it is within the executive department. What is prohibited under the Constitution is when it is a crossover.
Yes.
A crossover from one branch of government, let's say, bibigyan ni Marcos ng contingent fund share si Subiri or ang Senate or ang House. That cannot be.
Dapat
Because
Executive
that is not
Department.
allowed under the Constitution. And you can only transfer that kind of transfer if it has already become savings. Oh, ayan. So, maliwanag. Ito, pakinggan natin ang huli na sinasabi ng ating Vice President. Sara's secret funds as Davao Mayor also draws scrutiny. Alam mo mga kababayan, ngayon, pati yung mga nagastos na para maibsan ang insurgency sa Davao, kini-question ito ngayong mga kaliwatik na ito. Itong mga kaliwete na ito. Sila na yung nanggugulo sa Davao, galit sila na inibsan ni Sara at naging free of insurgency na yung Davao ngayon. At doon ginamit yung pera para mawala ang kanilang mga poder at kanilang impluensya sa Davao City. Ito, pakinggan natin.
The Commission on Audit should thoroughly investigate the 2.697 billion confidential fund allocation for Vice President Sara Duterte when she was mayor of Davao City from 2016 to 2022 and demand the return of the money if the confidential expenses were not justified, a Makabayan lawmaker said on Saturday.
Wala nang magawa ito sila Castro, wala pati yung nagastos na at ginamit para mawala yung mga kakampi nilang mga NPA, kakampi ni Castro, kakampi ni Brosas, kakampi nitong Manuel, para mawala sila sa panggugulo, sa kanilang violence sa Davao City, kaya ginastos yung pera niya. Ngayon, dahil nawala sila, ginagalit nila si Sara na ginastos daw yung pera, ang intelligence fund na malaki. Ginastos yan para mawala yun. Mawala yung mga katulad ninyo dyan sa Davao City.
Kaya gugulo. Ngayon sa Kongreso
na patay, nag-ambush. Kaya na nagkaroon ng alsamasa noon dahil sa too much insurgency in Davao City. Di ba? There was a time that the Alsamasa were praised by the people because they were the savior against communism and violence against the innocent people of Davao City. Yun po ang ano dyan. So, sinasabi ni Madam Sara na ginamit niya yung pera for national security. And this is now attested by the military, by the generals, that Davao is now a free insurgent city. So, yun ang nangyayari dyan. Okay? Now, ito, may patibay tayo na ang Malacanang mukhang ina-abandon si Inday Sara.
Nilalaglag.
Nilalaglag ngayon. Siguro utos ni Mrs. na kaibigan ko yan kunyari, pero ilaglag natin. This is very precise in the statement of the Office of the President during the budget hearing. Ito, pakinggan natin itong komunista na ito.
Bahagi po ng message ng Vice President sa China on its 74th founding anniversary, and I quote, "We hope that our partnership will prosper, especially in the areas of agriculture, trade, investment, science and technology, and people-to-people relations." End of quote. Mr. Speaker, ang ganitong mga sinabi ng Vice President, this is not consistent with the remarks of the Defense Secretary. Ang sabi po ng Defense Secretary sa committee budget briefing ay nagpo-portray ng cold attitude towards China given its encroachment in the West Philippine Sea. Kaya, Mr. Speaker, how can the President reconcile these incompatible stances of his Vice President and his Defense Secretary?
Mr. Speaker, sagutin ko po muna yung huling katanungan po ng aking kaibigan. Tungkol po sa reclamation, balikan ko lamang, mabilisan lamang po. Ipinatigil po ito ng Pangulo dahil nga po sa mga reklamo na karating po sa kanya. Kaya po ipinatigil kaagad ito ng Pangulong Marcos. Pangalawa po, ibang issue naman po itong nasa China ngayon. Ayan po ay mula po sa Office of the Vice President. Pero yung pong kanyang mga statement marahil ay hindi pa po talaga, hindi naman yun official stand ng buong pamahalaan, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yung mensahe po ng Office of the Vice President ay sa kanya po yung mensahe, pero it doesn't reflect the message of the Office of the President or the entire nation, Mr. Speaker.
Yung statement daw ni Sara, which emphasize amity, friendship with China, hindi daw official statement ng Malacanang. Ano palang official statement ng Malacanang? Yung sinasabi ni Teodoro na makipaglaban tayo sa China? Is that? Ano palang sinasabi ni McCoy Jr. nung nagbisita siya at nakakuha siya ng mga pledges sa China? The country, the policy is we are a friend of everyone and an enemy to none. That's exactly what Sara Duterte says. To encourage economic relations with China and so on and so forth. So, ngayon, sinasabi nitong Tulpo, although that is not Tulpo saying it, that is really Bersamin na nagbubulong-bulong doon sa likod ni Tulpo, na yun ang sabihin mo na hindi isuportado ng gobyerno yung sinasabi ni Inday Sara. Now, you're not saying that the statement of the Vice President that there must be friendship, a continuing friendship between China and the Philippines, and trade relations between China and the Philippines is not the policy now of Marcos Jr.? Is that what Malacanang is saying? So klaro-klaro na nilalaglag na nila ngayon si Vice President. Oh, di ba? O sino bang presidente diyan sa Malacanang, di ba? Yung babae? Oh. So, klarong-klaro na mayroong ugnayan itong mga leftists at saka yung namumuno diyan sa Malacanang na talagang titilahin nila si Vice President Sara Duterte. Not only because the LB her kasi she's always number 1 in the survey, and that they have resentment against the father who never endorsed this candidate who has using cocaine and who has been accused of being a weak leader. Yun po ang totoo dyan, mga kababayan. Anong masasabi niyong dalawa?
Well, ang pagkakaalam ko, mismo yung asawa nung isang secretary ni Bongbong Marcos was a former NDF. Oh.
Sino yun? Sino?
Sino yan? NDF pala yan?
Oh.
Sino?
Yung namimigay ng mga media ngayon?
Ayan, yung masyadong garapal dyan.
So ang asawa ng Garapal ay advisor dating NDF. Yun ang sinasabi mo, di umano?
Yes.
Kaya
Ito
pala.
ba yan? Hindi ko lang nalaman yan
So ngayon pala, kaya pala, iba na ang thinking, magkaibigan na ngayon yung mga kaliwete at si Marcos. Dahil yung kasama nilang NDF pala, asawa ng spokesperson.
At ang nagdidistribute ng propaganda funds ng PCOO ay ang asawa ni Garapal. Ni Secretary Garapal.
So, yun ang ugnayan. So, klarong-klaro, mga kababayan, na bumibitaw na ngayon ang Malacanang kay Sara Duterte. Yun ang klaro. And that is with evidence. Hindi natin sinasabi na gawa-gawa lang natin. Okay.
Pero nakakalungkot dito, napakalayo pa ng eleksyon. Dapat siguro pagtuunan ng pansin ng lahat ng mga leader sa gobyerno yung tunay na problema ng taong bayan.
Yes.
Yes.
Dapat kasi nagkaroon ng unity team to solve the problems of the country and to sustain and provide good economy. Pero ngayon, bagsak.
Ang problema dyan sa appeal for unity ng presidente na yan at saka yung unity team na yan, you have to unite with me for better or for worse.
Hindi naman pwede.
Hindi naman pwede.
No, because the real purpose, ang presentasyon ni Marcos nung nagsabi siya na tatakbo siya for president, ay hinihikayat niya ang lahat na sektor na magbuklod-buklod kasi mayroon siyang purpose na ibabangon ang bansa. Ngayon, hindi binabangon.
At hindi na-realize
ang
na
personal na kanilang intent and purposes, yun ang binabangon. Pero ang taong bayan,
Bagsak.
inaapakan.
Dapa.
talagang lutang eh.
Yun ang tunay na nangyayari ngayon.
Secretary, talagang lutang ngayon ang sitwasyon. Kasi they should realize that what is good for Sara is necessarily good for the President. And what is bad for Sara is necessarily bad for the President also. Kung sila maninira kay Sara, ayan ang ini-explain na ngayon itong mga survey na
Pero
lumalabas.
ito, ilalabas natin yung survey mamaya. Bakit parating mataas si Sara? Kung sinisiraan nila, walang naniniwala. Kulelat si Bongbong kay Sara eh. Sara has still maintained a higher rating in the survey compared to Mr. McCoy Jr. Kung talagang sinisiraan nyo na si Sara and everything, bakit pa rin Sara is able to sustain her lead against Marcos in all the surveys?
So, hindi umi-epekto masyado.
Walang epekto. In other words, walang naniniwala sa mga kaliwete na ginagamit ngayon ni Marcos at yung kanyang may bahay na sisiraan si Sara. Yun ang po ang totoo. Okay?
Okay. So, maraming salamat. Yan po, muli, no, ang ating kay Parasa ko pa rin po, si Eli Saludar.
Okay. Maraming pong salamat. Magandang hapon po sa inyo.
Kita tayo ulit.